Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah with FMO, and today we have Tom Attivissimo with us. Tom is the principal of Greiner Maltz of Long Island, and we'll be talking to Tom today about what he does, how he got started in commercial real estate. Thank you so much for being here, Tom.
Thank you for having me, Hannah. Appreciate it.
Of course. To get started here, can you go ahead and tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Thank you for asking, but a long line of family members, we always put God first and family and then personal life and business, so that's our guiding principle in things that we do. And then, as far as, who I am and what I do, that's the benchmark. I'm pretty much future orientated. I do believe that the future is full of potential. I'm determined to enhance my talents rather than worry about my limitations. Unlike the way they teach you in school, they kind of limit you. I think they make incredibly average people, but yet if they focus on unique abilities of each individual, then the world, I think, would be a much happier place when they go to work. So years ago, I had a coach who helped me with this, but it was a unique ability statement that I used for myself. And it goes like this. It goes, my unique ability is to first educate myself, asking questions, communicate the pros and cons, to generate alternatives and create efficiencies for a firm solution, which inspires and transforms something strong into something better. So when I go about my day, what I'm factory built to do is always ask questions. I always lead with questions, and I always inherently just try to weigh out pros and cons. I always try to make a better mousetrap. And when this statement was written, it was just like, wow, that is what I do, when I'm striving and doing things. So, all of that being said, I do work better when I have multiple tasks to do every day. And there's always something in real estate. There's always multiple tasks in real estate. So I guess I'm factory built to do that. But then again, it could be anything. I do that even when I'm, let's say, socializing, when I'm with friends or, at a social function. I talk to somebody and I just inherently ask questions and weigh out things in my head. It's just a natural progression.
I love that. How long have you utilized that statement?
That's probably for the last 12 years or so. I always look for, I'm always looking for a bigger future than my past. And I'll always direct my attention to what I can accomplish in the coming months and years and decades. And I always plan for it. I'm a big planner too. And I also strive for our company, to have the people that work there utilize their unique abilities, because what better way than to spend your day doing what your factory built to do? I mean, imagine Hannah just always doing what Hannah loves and what was God-given talent every day, day in and day out. The days would just fly by, right? It would be so fun. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the real estate side of this? And obviously, we said earlier, Greiner Maltz of Long Island. What does that look like? And kind of how did you get involved in real estate?
Well, I first started out as a engineer. So what happened was, the market changed. I was going for my MBA in finance, and I enjoyed that. Part of the business, like we did systems integration, it was multitasking, it was, all of those things that I didn't realize I love to do, but I gravitated towards integrating different things, doing multiple tasks at the same time, and just loving to just make something better that was already engineered and designed. So, the market changed. The industry was going to leave Long Island in 1986. And I looked at Annie and I said, we have a choice. They want me to go to Visalia Air Force Base, which is in the middle of nowhere. It's the desert, or Italy. We'll leave our family. Didn't want to do that. Or Melbourne, Florida. So she said no to all three of those. And I said, well, all right, fine. The industry is leaving Long Island. I mean, it's just inevitable. So what are we going to do? So I always
didn't want to go to Italy?
Well, we have two big Italian families, right? So the biggest thing for us is Christmas Eve.
Family. Okay.
Yeah. Everything revolves around
All
the
right.
kitchen table. And we were young and we just had a baby, and she didn't want to leave, New York and, the support system to take care of the baby if we needed something. Right.
I understand, but Italy would be so cool to say that you went and lived in Italy for X amount of years.
No doubt. You know what? Looking back at it, I don't know, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what we did. But yeah, we still haven't gone to Italy yet. That's something.
Yeah, at all?
I know. So many people are like hating on me for that. I'm like, what's the matter with you? Like I had one guy hit me in the back.
You have to go. It's absolutely stunning.
We will. We'll go.
Put it on the short list. There you go.
Yeah. No
all right.
doubt.
Well, we'll reel it back in. So
yeah.
So you didn't go to Italy. You stayed in Long Island, and then what?
And then I said, so I always had an interest while I was going to college about real estate. So you educate yourself by just reading books, right? So I read a whole bunch of books, and I was dangerous to myself and everybody around me because I read so much stuff, and I'm like, hey, maybe I can do this. So anyway, I ended up going into commercial industrial real estate, and I interviewed with multiple, companies on Long Island, one of which was Greiner Maltz. And Bill Greiner just impressed me so much as just being the complete opposite of what you would think a real estate person should be. He was very calm. He was very unassuming, very humble, very successful. And, he was at the top of his game when I met him. He was the go-to person at the time. And it was from there, I just felt that, that was the right place for me. I was just going to say, you really don't know if real estate is for you or not, but you definitely test your theories in life and say, well, yeah, maybe I could be okay with this. But it really suited me really well because I guess, there are so many facets of it that were interesting to me. There's law, there's engineering, there's architectural, there's, design, there's environmental, there's finance, there's negotiations. Everybody leads with negotiation, but that's the last thing, and then it's really just pulling and marrying people together to have them come to the conclusion that this is what they want, and then they own it, instead of you trying to sell it to them. You educate them along the way, which is one of my strengths, actually, is to ask, questions and see what drives people. And, you help solve their problems. You walk alongside them as they are going through this very difficult process of putting a lot of money into something that they may not know it's going to work or not. And you're supposed to reassure them that this is the right decision to do. So all of that comes with experience, comes with, learning and failing a few times, but failure only happens when you stop learning. So I use failure as a tool to learn. So this way you can bring wisdom to the table, and that you can't get in books. You just get it through experience.
What would you say has been the biggest failure in your career or just in your life thus far, and how did you learn from it?
Well, so fail fast, fail forward, and fail frequently. So it's a tool. It really is a good tool. And your attitude, my attitude towards it is basically, what can I learn from this? And get over it real quick, not to weigh you down and discourage you from moving forward. And, I guess growing up in a home where, you didn't have too much time to complain because your father wouldn't let you get away with it. It's like, hey, you got 2 minutes to get over it and move on, because life is difficult. It's a grind. And what better way to learn than to make a few mistakes? So dust yourself off and move forward. So those are things that I learned at a very young age, which definitely helped me and boded well in this industry for sure, because it's fraught with disappointment, if you let it get to you. If you use it in another way, saying, all right, what can I learn? What worked? What didn't work? And how can I do it better next time? Avoiding the slippery slope of making mistakes and things like that and turning them into positives. And guess what? You use that to help your client get through the same issues
Very true.
you have gone through. So now you've lived it, And it really is a helpful tool. And they sense that. They sense that you're not just jiving them. It's coming from experience. You're not selling them anything. You can point things out to them that can actually help them get through the same thing that you've gone through. Hey, man, I've been there before, and anticipate how this thing could play out for them and say so.
I love that. What would you say is the biggest shift you're seeing currently in the commercial real estate market?
The biggest shift in the real estate market. In this never-ending dynamic and volatile world that we live in, it still boils down to a few simple things. Money. Capital markets have changed recently. Since the pandemic. You had this artificial infusion of money. Well, that doesn't. There are no economic books written that will actually say how to handle that situation. It's uncharted waters.
Right.
It's a variable. It's like, supply and demand. Well, if supply is, artificially injected into the system vis-a-vis money, then everybody is just spending money because banks want to get rid of it. So now we have all this money that was in the system has been turned off recently with the Fed. So the Fed basically took the punch bowl away of the party, which is the money, metaphorically speaking, and then you take that away and it's like, all right, now there's no money in the system. So there's not a lot of capital. So how does that really affect the market? Well, I still think people are still drunk on the punch bowl and they think it's going to keep on going. And then there's another camp that says it's not going to keep going. And now what do we do? So what does that create? Uncertainty. So I think this question, if you asked me maybe 6 months from now, we'll have a clearer answer, because uncertainty is a killer for any market to move forward, right? It's like, 100%. I don't know what to do. Should I buy a truck? Should I buy a piece of machinery? Should I hire more people? Well, maybe not, because if I have 6 months or a year of reserves and I burn through that and the market tanks and I just hired all these people and bought this truck, I'm broke, I'm out of business, So there's a lot of that uncertainty, I would say. And why don't we have this 6 months from now and I'll have probably a better answer maybe.
All right. Would you say then that's just been the biggest effect of the pandemic on the commercial real estate industry specifically, is just the sheer uncertainty that's been brought with it?
Well, that's a two-pronged question too. So yes, and the uncertainty of managing and running the company, because look at the ergonomics of everything that's happened. The human capital has changed. The inevitable has happened that forced people to go into a remote environment for their company. So your generation is factory built to go ahead and, I don't need to go in the office today. And then you have an older generation of managers who are fearful of losing people and they want them to come back in. So now there's this tug of war. You have office space designed and built to have everybody there. The pandemic hits, half the people want to come in or should come in. And now that the pandemic's over, I'm enjoying staying home. I have 2 kids. It's flex hours. As long as I get my job done, why should I have to come in? Good point. Then there's that tug of war. So the jury's still out, but I think the younger generation, the inevitable is going to happen. Remote hybrid situations for certain industries are going to prevail. And then it's going to be what happens to the office space that's already built and leased and committed to. Interesting, right? So it's already happening. You have all of this ghost space on the market, and you see more office space coming around on listings like, 10,000 feet here. In the city, it's 50,000, 60,000 square feet, because maybe a third of that space is being utilized. So what's going to happen to it? How do you renegotiate a 10-year deal that you did a year before the pandemic when you committed to this space? Defaults are going to happen. How is that going to change things? Banks are going to be your partner for those buildings that are going to be underwater, possibly, unless something happens fast. I don't see it happening. I could be wrong. People are more optimistic. I think investors might be optimistic because now they can buy buildings at a discount, possibly. and hold on to them because they have the capital. They're smart. They know how to manage things. And there are opportunities out there too, you know?
But are you seeing an increase then in like warehouse spacing just because of all the online shopping people are doing? So they need a hub to put all of their like goods, products in. Is that spiking at all, or is that staying pretty stagnant?
So are you asking, is industrial real estate more desirable now, or?
Well, in a sense, because when you think about it, for such a long time, all the stores were closed. So everybody was utilizing online shopping to get their whatever they needed. But that stuff needs to be put somewhere. So was there an increase in warehousing space because that's where people were putting all of those products and goods, or not at all?
Well, that's a very intuitive question for a non-real estate person. I have to commend you for that very intuitive question, because that's exactly what's happening. Yeah, but because warehouse space just spiked. That's true. So, but having said that, that's exactly what's happened. So smart money had put a lot of interest in industrial real estate. And everybody thought that retail was going to be the one to die. But it wasn't. I can't explain it, but there seems to be a resurgence in retail as well. And, there are numbers that it's really close to fully occupied again. And that product was actually kind of on the high alert. Is it going to default? How many of these shopping centers are going to really go under? A handful of the old ones that were always antiquated anyway did fall into, let's say, vacancy, and then it was converted to industrial. But some of the really upscale malls have survived and thrived and then retrofitted. They took away the interior malls and they made them into, let's say, large movie theaters and entertainment areas. But, retail has done well, industrial for sure. And there's this wall of money from pension funds and investment people that are coming into that space because they have no place to park their money. They don't want to put it in, the S&P. They feel that real estate is just a better, safer bet. So the arbitrage with lower interest rates are just more profitable for them. So they'll get 3 or 4% on their money, better than the S&P at the high risk end. And plus they own it. And then they can do things with it, refinance it. They can create other businesses around it, real estate brokerage, construction management, and they generate fees from that, which they can enhance an entire portfolio. So that's the long answer to a yes. Industrial is the preferable food group in real estate in my world. Also, which we're not talking about now, is let's say residential multifamily or even single family homes too have spiked incredibly.
I was going to ask about that as well. What is the difference between the multifamily residential and then industrial? What's the differentiating factor there for you?
Well, from a user standpoint, it's obvious, right? You live in the residential and you work in the industrial, but from a financial point of view, it's where can you get your most bang for your buck, right? So, and what do you understand most? So from a pure numbers standpoint, residential and industrial, I don't know which one is better in the long run. I guess it depends on what the critical mass of ownership is. Like Blackstone is owning, tens of thousands of units. That's heavy management, but they're geared towards that. Then there are other guys who they look at the industrial. They don't want multi-tenant industrial. They want big box, single unit, net lease type buildings. 1 million square feet, 10 tenants. 1 million square feet, 2 tenants. Less management, easy to maintain, very simple food group, but they're geared towards that. Sometimes you offer them a multi-tenant industrial building and they're like, no, I don't need 50 small, tenants. And there are other guys like, yeah, I'm built for that. So it depends on, how they are structured and what they feel comfortable with.
Were you also seeing a spike in the multifamily then too during the pandemic because everybody was at home? Were they wanting more space because they were all working from home. Their kids were there too, if they did have other people living there with them. So did you see a spike in that as well during the pandemic, or was everybody too scared to like go anywhere?
Both. You had people flee from the city, go to the suburbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then what happened was they looked for bigger houses, because then you had the young families who were living in Manhattan. And if they had children and then they had to work remotely, what are you going to do with a 2-year-old, while you're working, as he's banging on your keyboard? So then they bought a house with 3 bedrooms in it, well, 4 bedrooms. That became the go-to, type of residential. Right. And, because they needed one room for an office in a private area to be. Mm-hmm. So that really pushed values up quite a bit, all the way out to the Hamptons, all of Nassau, Suffolk, and then right out to the Hamptons.
Have you seen a shift back to the city then, now that we're sort of out of the pandemic?
I think once those folks have committed to live outside the city, it's a shame, but everybody knows that it's not safe like it used to be. So they're not rushing back, only if they have to. There are, family friends have daughters that live in the city. They don't go out at night. They don't go in the subway. They're careful. They're aware that things are not what they used to be.
What would you say is your biggest challenge currently?
For business, it would be, in this remote environment, to maintain the corporate culture in the company as we, are further and further apart every day. How do you maintain the culture and keep it, active? How do you keep the vision current? How do you keep it vital for everybody, to assure them that there is a bigger future and it is a safe, place to be. And, we'll continue to grow as time goes on. And then the other part of it is this world of hyper information, or we have so much information at our fingertips that it's very hard to focus on what's important. So I think before you wake up in the morning, you have to decide what it is you're going to focus on for the rest of your life, basically. And so I've always said, simplify things and focus on one thing and one thing only, and that's your unique ability. Remember the unique ability statement?
I do. So all circles back to it.
For me, it does. And it simplifies everything, because then you focus on creating a better, you. So you can go ahead and encourage others to go ahead and focus on their unique ability. So with all of this information, you narrow it down to just focusing on how you can, be better, to share it with those around you, and with the bigger vision in mind. How do I go ahead and create a bigger vision for everybody using my unique ability along the way? If you start to go ahead and focus on other things outside of that, then you're chasing every shiny object and you're wasting your time. Right? And then you try to be somebody you're not, which is really hard to do. The best thing to do is find out who you are, feel really good about your skin, and people might actually enjoy being around you or not. And if they don't, that's okay too, to each his own. You can't be everybody's friend, but you do the best you can to be the best you, and provide a good service for everybody.
For sure. What would you say is the next step for you in your career?
Well, to continue to do that, basically, to continue to forge forward, have a bigger, have a bigger past in our future, and just continue to do that. And this ever-changing world, it's just fraught with opportunity. Technology is transforming everybody and how we do things. And I love to embrace that. I have this futuristic kind of bent to my brain. I love science. I love things that make life easier and better for everybody. And there's so many problems to solve out there in the community and the world at large. So how could life be boring? Just do one thing that you do really well, share it with the rest of the world, and, do that 5 minutes after you're dead, and you'll have a full life.
I love it. Very insightful.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Tom. And for everybody who tuned in, we'll catch you guys all on the next podcast. See you later.
Ciao for now. Thank you.